turn the heat down. So I went to my supervisor, Richie, and he said, save money, turn it down. It is. I just turn it down. So I'll put these lights on now. You guys tell me how many you want.
We only need like one roll.
I need all I can get to see what. We don't know.
Well, no, I don't use it. You can only need it on the premises. You have to use it unless specifically in the summertime. We use it really offset the budget. The budget is offsetting the summertime. Correct? The budget is offset the budget.
We're operating under the premise that we can do it, and if we can't do it, then somebody will tell us we can. Our policy has been, also, gee, we can never ask. What do we, like, every other year, what do you do with that? Do you take money? And where does it go? Yeah, do you actually do it in the But is it in there somewhere? If you can't stand the heat, go where?
The heat's the hearing. They both start with an H.
Well, as long as you say that you support us.
Oh, I do. 100%. Yeah.
Unless somebody's going to be assassinated or something.
There's a real good lighting on tonight for some reason. Change the lighting? We get one of these back from the governor's office.
I didn't broadcast this, just gave me a copy of his letter, but I think it's the same one. It doesn't sound to be too supportive there.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I know. He phoned me yesterday. He's arranged for mine. He's going to get my answer as well.
Yeah. I'm just going to stay. I don't know if you've got the time limit.
I wouldn't say anything about that. I'll just say he's out of town business. If he doesn't get the meeting, it's what
He's down to a meeting in Worcester. That's just the way I'm going. I get two announcements I want to make. Sure, I get two announcements. I want to read it. What it is. The Huh?
I know who you're talking about. The hell with him. Don't even bother. He gets up there. I'll take care of it.
Did we send it in?
No, we gotta prove it.
When did we get it? Oh, great.
He's coming late.
Well, if they don't approve it within a certain period, it's probably not happening.
There is certain laws like that, aren't there? They don't hit them as, you know.
I don't see it here. But if we get money in, we could hear something. They get money in every year. Lumped in with all the
That's the interest on the investment.
If everybody in the hallway could come in, we'll take a count. Okay, why don't our tellers, if they want to take, you've got your sections, why don't we take a count and see how we're doing here for numbers?
Mike, this one.
I got the stage, Jeff. Yeah.
That one too, this one too. Yeah, this is TV. That's TV.
Alec. Two more coming. Three.
Yeah, I'm gonna. You said. Ladies and gentlemen, the quorum having been reduced at the last town meeting, or a special town meeting, from 250 to 200, we now have 212 people in the hall. It's my pleasure to declare this meeting open. I'd like to thank Continental Cablevision for showing this meeting live on Channel 30. We certainly thank Continental Cablevision for their interest in Clinton Town government in providing this service. I'd like at this time to have a moment of silence for some individuals from Clinton who unfortunately are no longer with us. 35-year member of the Clinton Finance Committee, Dr. Lawrence Burke. From the Board of Health, Louis Poltoric. Former Clinton Selectman, Joseph Kilcoyne. From the Department of Public Works, Charles Roddy, Edward Ryder, and Robert Vadas. son of Town Solicitor William Conley, Michael Conley, husband of Economic Development and Community Development Director Mary Jo Bates, Otis Bates, and wife of former Selectman Tom Clisham, Mia Clisham. These people are no longer with us, and they are missed by their family and friends. If we could have a moment for them at this time. Thank you. I'd like to introduce your stage members for tonight's meeting. In your far right, Selectman John McNamara, Selectman Michael Ward, Chairman of the Board James Coyne, Solicitor William Conley, and Selectman's Assistant Richard Monturi. And all violins on the other side, we have, coming out of retirement, Mary O'Brien, Selectman Stenographer. Selectman Robert Champagne is on town business, is expected to be here shortly. In keeping with a policy we adopted 1 year ago, the only hands that will be counted during hand votes will be those from people who are seated in seats in the hall, which everyone is doing now anyway. All speakers must be recognized by the moderator before speaking. All questions, comments, or discussion should be directed to the moderator. The moderator will redirect that to the appropriate person for a response. Please note personalities in your remarks and keep all comments to the article under consideration. Please state your name and address before speaking, and all proposed amendments should be presented to me in writing. The only people in the hall right now should be registered voters in the town of Clinton or people who have been given prior permission by myself to observe the proceedings. Unless I hear an objection, I will dispense with the reading of the warrant, as you should all have a copy of that in front of you now. And with that, we can proceed with Article 1.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $15,980.82 from Cemetery Trust Fund interest to reduce the fiscal year 1992 tax levy.
Mr. Moderator, I second that motion.
Article number 1 being made and seconded to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $15,980.82 from the Cemetery Trust Fund interest to reduce the fiscal year 1992 tax levy or act in any manner relating thereto. This article having been approved by your Finance Committee. Any questions, comments, or discussion on Article 1? There being none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed unanimously.
Article 2. Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to accept the provisions of Section 41 of Chapter 653 of the Acts of 1989 regarding quarterly tax bills.
Mr. Moderator, I second that motion.
Article number 2 having been made and seconded, dealing with the changing of the tax bills for what you now pay twice a year would be divided, instead of being divided by 2, it would be divided by 4, and you would pay quarterly. This is the article that we did speak about at the last meeting, the meeting before, I guess, and then we didn't finish. We didn't vote on it anyway. Mr. Monturi.
This article will change the present collection of tax bills from twice a year to 4 times a year. If this article is passed, this new system will not take effect until July 1, 1992, for what will be fiscal year 1993. The new change in the system will work as follows. Preliminary tax bills will be sent out on or before July 1. The preliminary bill will be based on the net taxes owed on your property, and it will reflect your second half fiscal year's bill. What that means is, if in the second half of the previous fiscal year, your bill is $500, that's what your preliminary bill will be for the first half of the following fiscal year. That bill will be paid in 2 equal installments. Once again, if the bill is $500, you will pay 2 equal installments of $250 each. The first installment will be due August 1st, and the second installment will be due November 1st. The taxpayer does have the option of paying the full amount, but the full amount must be paid on or before August 1st. Your actual bill will be sent out on or before December 31st. It will reflect the assessed value of your property, the tax rate, the amount of property taxes owed. The bill will show the amount of the preliminary bill that was paid, and that will be credited against your bill sent to you in the second half of the year. So if your bill is $500, a preliminary bill of $500, and you sent a second half bill of $1,200, that $500 will be credited against the $1,200, and you will owe $700. That $700, once again, is paid in 2 equal installments of $350 each. The first installment will be due February 1st, and the second installment is due May 1st. Once again, the taxpayer has the option of paying the full amount, but the full amount must be paid on or before February 1st. The reason for requesting the implementation of this new system is basically because the town has had problems for the last 3 fiscal years with cash flow. The cash flow in the town has been very difficult since state revenue has not come in on time, since revenues have been down for the town. The town for the last 3 fiscal years has borrowed, I'll give you an example for each year. In fiscal year 1990, the town borrowed $5 million in revenue anticipation notes. The interest cost for that short-term borrowing was $73,916. In fiscal year 1991, the town borrowed in revenue anticipation notes $3,500,000. The interest cost was $230,158. In this fiscal year, we've only gone for about 4 months. We have already borrowed $1,790,000. That has cost us $72,802 in interest. The total borrowing for the last 3 fiscal years has been $10,290,000, and its cost in interest $376,877,000. This new system is aimed at reducing the amount or eliminating the amount of money we have borrowed and the interest costs that are related. Now, since the introduction of this new system, 106 cities and towns in the Commonwealth have adopted quarterly tax bills. The towns that are presently using the system have seen borrowing reduced and interest payments reduced. And as the system goes on, they have seen the elimination of such borrowing and such interest costs. Other benefits this system has: it provides more investment income for the towns. It also provides more certainty of when bills are due. Under our present system, we're not sure when the bills will actually go out. It depends on when the budget is finalized and when the tax rate is set. This new system, you must keep the date specified. Also, this new system, from what we understand from the Department of Revenue, has gone over very well in 36 cities and towns that have already implemented it. They have seen a more equal distribution of income throughout the town. In closing, the facts that have been stated: the town has borrowed over the last 2.5 years. They have borrowed a substantial amount of money, and it cost us a substantial amount of money in interest. The figures that I'm quoting you aren't fluffed. They are actual facts. The treasurer has borrowed in each of the fiscal years, and we go day to day with sometimes with cash flow problems. This new system will help us curb this problem and save money for the town each fiscal year. So we ask that you support and pass this article. Thank you.
Still under discussion under Article 2. Any further comments?
That makes sense.
Sir.
My name is James Berry, 25 Street, Massachusetts. I am a member of the Board of Assessors. I work for you people. I am also a taxpayer, and I would like to talk to you for a few minutes about why I am opposed to quarterly tax bills. Let me start out by asking, have the Selectmen or Mr. Montori yet completed the cost-benefit analysis of quarterly tax bills that I asked for at the last town meeting?
tax bills were introduced, there was a cost-benefit worksheet that was passed out, and that was the last time I even recall working on it. I think the savings was approximately $70,000 at the time. You might have something different, Jimmy. I haven't seen the latest. But Jimmy, just to answer that further, without doing the cost-benefit analysis that the Department of Revenue sent out, the facts that I'm speaking to are actual. Those are projections from the Department of Revenue. The Department of Revenue is not here on a daily basis with us. They're not here with the treasurer when she borrows the money that she borrowed in the last 3 fiscal years, and they're not paying the interest payments that we're paying over the last 3 fiscal years. Those are the facts I'm looking at.
I hear the answer is no, they haven't done it. I thought I heard a question. Yes, I have done it. I have kept it up to date. Bottom line, quarterly tax payments based on an interest return of 5%, which is high. It may go down lower. Quarterly tax payments would save the town the magnificent sum of $56. Let me address some of the figures that Mr. Monturi just gave us. I think it is wholly inappropriate to come before a town meeting and talk figures without having passed out a prepared sheet so that people can read them and understand them. These are actual figures taken from the town budget for 1990, 91, and 1992. There is one figure that he did not mention when he gave these figures, and the figure is the budget figure. All of these figures were budgeted. Some years we had a surplus, other years we had a deficit. A deficit doesn't bother me as a taxpayer, and it shouldn't bother you, as long as it is budgeted. I realize the problem that the selectmen have. I know that there are unpaid tax bills out there. I know the state is not doing its part to get the money in on time, and I have no problem with them borrowing money, and I am willing to pay it as part of my tax bill. I could give you all of these figures, but I won't bore you with them because they're too difficult to understand unless you have a copy of them in front of you. I am opposed to quarterly tax payments for the following reasons. 1, it will be difficult for many people to come up with tax payments 4 times a year as compared to 2 times a year. 2, if you are late on your payments, interest will be charged at a rate of 14% starting on the first day after the due date and will be continued until each quarterly payment is paid in full. Number 3, quarterly tax payments will be extremely confusing to elderly taxpayers, especially to those who receive exemptions or abatements and are trying to keep their homes while living on a low fixed income. Number 4, people who are unemployed or are working on construction or in seasonal trades will be adversely affected by off-season payments and will end up paying the 14% late charge. How can these tradesmen afford to pay real estate taxes twice as often as they do now? Remembering, of course, that they still have to pay federal taxes, state taxes, water bills, heating bills, insurance bills, and on and on and on. Even now, in a time of recession and high unemployment, we have over $1 million in 1990 and 1991 unpaid real estate taxes and tax title accounts being charged an extra 14% daily interest charge. In fact, the biggest income-producing feature of the quarterly tax program is the late interest charges, which are paid by those taxpayers who can least afford them. Is this a fair and equitable tax system? Not in my mind, it isn't. Some statistics, if you will. Of the 351 towns and cities in Massachusetts, 250 towns and cities, 72% have said no to quarterly tax payments. Please keep Clinton on the winning and caring team and vote no on this question. Number 7, the morass of extra unnecessary paperwork involved in this program. The increased forms, notices, envelopes, computer records, not to mention postage costs and increased man-hours spent in figuring, handling, posting on both the town's part and on your part as taxpayers, sinks this program as being economically feasible. It is a base work program, and we all know as taxpayers what that means. Make more work, make more pay, make more taxes. If you voted and believe in Proposition 2.5, and if you want to continue to maintain control over your tax bills, please vote no on this question of quarterly taxes. Thank you.
Still under discussion under the article. Sir.
And I'd like to put forth a couple of ideas, thoughts, in basically direct rebuttal from what you just heard. I'm firmly in support of quarterly tax bills for the following reasons. You heard Richard mention the amount of cost the town of Clinton pays in the previous fiscal year. If you didn't hear the number, I'll repeat it. It's $230,000 worth of interest cost. In case you didn't hear the number, for 1992 fiscal year, the amount paid to date is $72,000. Folks, this is 3 months into the year. If you want to prorate that, it comes real close to more than $250,000. We are borrowing in anticipation of revenues. We are one of 200 communities that have to do that. The other 136 don't have to do that. They're rich and successful. This particular quarterly tax bill has the support of your town treasurer. It has the support of the collector of taxes. It will save the town money, not $56. I'd like to see the numbers behind the $56, please. But we've got a potential savings in here this year of $200,000. What if we're only half right? Isn't $100,000 worth the efforts? I think it is, in terms of saving jobs and services for this town. I've got a report here that's dated August 1991 from a publication called City and Town. It's put out by some group by the name of Massachusetts Department of Revenue, Division of Local Services. And among the things it points out here is the communities that in fiscal year 1991 chose to go to quarterly tax bills. They saved, on average, 87% of their borrowing cost. That's 87. That's just less than 88 and more than 86%. I'm trying to drive these numbers home because they work. It works. Just because we're one of a few whatever number of communities that haven't voted for it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means those other 50 are smarter than we are so far. So let's catch up with them. Let's be smart. some quotes in here, and I won't belabor it too much here. Danvers treasurer, the town realized $185,000 worth of income. Framingham, $300,000 of interest. Not only does the town save on interest costs, but guess what? We might be able to earn interest on our money. Maybe. That's a bonus. On a hypothetical $1,000 real estate tax, facts, folks, not fiction, not conjecture, not too much emotion, because I'm firmly in favor of that, as I mentioned coming up. If you're being asked, you're not being asked to pay 1 cent more in taxes. You're not being asked to send another dime for taxes due. What you're being asked to do is to pay 1/2 of your semi-annual bill twice a year. That's 3 months, in my hypothetical example, of $250 for 3 months' interest. If you can get 6% interest, that happens twice a year, you know what the economic impact of this? Will it cost you money for doing this? Yes. Interest lost, $8 per year per 1,000 real estate bill. After taxes, $6. On a weekly basis, 12 pennies, 12 cents to possibly save $250. But the $250 is not a problem, folks, because it's in the budget. No, it's not in the budget. Approximately $80,000 is budgeted. What happens when we run out? We're at 72 and counting. This is October 15th. Who are we going to lay off? We're going to continue to borrow into next year to avoid some more interest cost. Where is it going to come from? Does anyone have any other ideas on where this money could be saved of any substance? I don't. I sit on the Finance Committee for 2 years now. This is the best thing I've seen come down the pike as a potential saving for this town. Nothing comes close for this. A lot of people have their taxes escrowed on a monthly basis. The banks do that already. Again, you're not avoiding taxes. You're not paying more taxes. You're just paying what's due. It's called cash flow. The other issue we're going to face later tonight is going to impact next year. If you think it's bad this year, wait till next year. We got a teacher deferral coming up of $359,000. We're incurring interest costs, again, at the rate of more than $250,000 for this year. We've paid over $400,000 as a town for the last 3 years. Does that mean something to you folks? It does to me as a taxpayer. The bottom line is I don't care who did approve or who hasn't approved. I know what it can do potentially. It'll save this town money. It'll save this job towns. Why? I have yet to hear a reason, a legitimate reason why this would not work. Thank you for your time.
No one has a question on Article 2? Mr. Coyne.
Moderator, to follow up on what Mr. Starr said, I'm 100% behind him, and I place myself in favor of this article. And I'd like to start off with the point of towns around us here that are looking into this right here. I have a newspaper telegram that Wednesday, September 25th, 1991, at a special town meeting in the town of Lunenburg, and one of the votes that was made at the town and it was accepted changed the annual town meeting from the second Saturday in May to the second Saturday in April and implement a quarterly tax collection system. Also, I have another letter here, this Clinton Daily item, and that's dated recently also, October 4th, 1991, and the comment is made by the treasurer, Robert Blake, in the town of Bolton. And he states, the town should re-examine the feasibility of quarterly tax billing as one way of reducing the frequency and the size of the borrowing. And they ran into a problem over there where they had put up so much money for borrowing, they ran into a deficit, and now they're living with that. As a former assessor for 20 years in the town, I know some of the problems we have, but I also like to say that, I'm going to quote again here, and I talked about this last year also, there's a matter of this borrowing, and this borrowing is tremendous. We got caught the first year around here with the late payments from the state on the quarterly payments. We got caught with money that was due to the town for some sewer work, which they didn't pay. We had to go out and pay the vendors off. We had to borrow the money. It cost us $35,000 to borrow it. It wasn't our fault. The state didn't pay us, so we had to go out and pay the vendors. As of the present time, from July 1st to the present date, we have borrowed $72,802.25 already this year. We borrowed $1,790,000. Now, at a rate like that, last year we had a budget of over $300,000. When I left that office 2 years ago, we were borrowing anywhere between $60,000 and $80,000 a year. So you can see the difference of what's happening out there, of what's causing all this. And there's a lot of things that enter into it, and you could sit here all night and talk about it. But I think that we're on the right road. I really believe this, and I put myself on in favor of it, because I think we're not forced into it, but I think we're damn close to being forced into it. It's going to save us money. We know that. I hear Mr. Durkin talk about it. I think the tax collector, I don't know if he's here tonight or not, but last year, or the previous meeting that he is present, stated what way these bills were going to be mailed out and how they were going to be mailed out, and I think he'd be glad to state his reasons or what it was. There may be a small additional cost, but I think that in the long run, that it'd save us a lot of money. And the problem, like Mr. Durkin states, and he knows it just as well as I do, that this $1 million, or close to $1 million that's owed the town right now, is not individual little taxpayers in the town. It's owned by large real estate owners who are either in Chapter 11 or filing bankruptcy one way or another, and they're having hard times. Now, I don't think we'll ever lose the money. I know we won't lose it because we're first on the list when if anything goes bad. But the point is that when we don't get their money and we set up a budget and this money's to come in and we don't meet that, we have to go out and borrow this money to keep these budgets on par, because Mr. Durkin likes to get paid every week and everybody else likes to get paid every week. We've got to pay everybody. So I think that it's a good idea, and that's all I'll say in it now. Thank you.
Under Article 2, sir.
Name is Rod Cassius, Grove Street. Mr. Moderator, I have a couple of questions and a statement, if you don't mind. Questions. Mr. Montori stated that if we didn't make the quarterly payment, we could make the semi-annual payment. Is that a true statement?
Well, the semi-annual we're on now, you would go on one or the other.
Yeah, but no, if, I think Mr. Montori knows what I'm trying to say there.
Go ahead.
When the first bill is sent out, just one that's sent out on before July 1, one sent out on before December 31st, you have the option of paying the full amount. The full amount will be stated on the bill. You'll have the option of paying that full amount, but that full amount must be paid, for the preliminary must be paid prior or on August 1st, and for the second half bill, or the second bill sent out in December, it must be paid on or before February 1st. So you have
As is done now.
As is done now, except there's a more specified time. Right now, we never know when our bills are going to go out.
All right, but I have the option of paying that quarterly instead of semi-annual.
That's right.
Is there any penalty to me if I select to pay semi-annually?
As long as you pay all of it or half of it prior or on or before August 1st, no.
As we do now.
Right.
Then, Mr. Moderator, I think there is no more discussion on this. If we can save $300,000 or $250,000, that means my tax bill is going to be a little bit less, and maybe because of the teacher deferral, we only have to get a little bit more. Sir, I'm in favor. Thank you.
No other discussion on this.
John Dromgoole, South Meadow Road. All I've heard here tonight, again, from all the people in town boards that are in favor of this is favorable things. We're going to save money, we're going to save money. Well, that's all good to sit up there and say we're going to save money. I haven't heard any figures. And I can't believe that people in this town haven't sat down and projected that when the tax receipts are going to come out under the quarterly plan, and on top of that, compare it to what our pattern of borrowing has been over the past 2 years, and can't come up with some projected savings, that have some legitimacy beside them. I've heard everything from $300,000 to $56. I mean, are we really going to save any money under this process? That's all I want to know. It doesn't seem, nobody has seemed to come up with any figures, and I can't believe that somebody hasn't projected that out as to how much money we're really going to save. Has anybody done anything like that?
Mr. Montori.
I'll try to answer that question. First of all, one of the factors we're using in saying that we're going to save money is based on what other towns have seen for savings when they've implemented a quarterly system. We also have seen, from our own experience, the increased interest costs because of the increased amount of borrowing that the treasurer has had to do over the past few years. We are sure that borrowing will decrease, if not be totally eliminated in the future. Therefore, you will see a savings because you won't have to pay any of the high interest costs that we're paying now. What that figure exactly is very difficult to pinpoint. It depends on how much borrowing we do each year, if state aid is late. It depends on the interest rates at the time. It depends how much we save in the interest costs, plus what we gain in investment interest because the money is in the bank and what the interest rates are in the bank. It varies, but the first projection, from what I remember when this system first came out, the projection based on the worksheet was around $70,000. And I'm not sure what figures Mr. Durkin is using, but $56 seems very low to me, especially with the amount of interest that we are paying for borrowing. And common sense says that if we don't have to do that much borrowing, we're not going to be paying that much interest. So for an exact figure, I don't have one, but we feel that from the factors we have seen and the trend over the last few years, we will have a savings to the town.
To that, you anticipate, or you've made some projection on how much the town is going to receive in tax receipts every quarter, as opposed to, what we anticipate in borrowing. Do you anticipate, based upon our current borrowing parameters, that we're going to be borrowing less? I mean, we must have some type of borrowing pattern that the town borrows money on. Oh, I was going to say, the town, there must be some pattern to the way the town borrows money. And I can't see that it could be that different every year, and are we going to really match that with the tax receipts on a quarterly basis?
Well, first of all, we're not on a quarterly basis right now, but the semi-annual, it is difficult because we don't send tax bills out every year at the same time. We don't send water bills out every year at the same time. The revenue from the state doesn't come in at the same time every year, so it's difficult for us to pinpoint exactly how much we'll need to borrow. We do know for a fact that June 30th, because we have some large bills at the end of the year, we do see a consistency in borrowing a minimum of $1 million and sometimes $2 million to get us through the end of the year into the next fiscal year. If we did switch to quarterly payments of taxes, it will give us the opportunity, because of the certainty of payments, to project our cash flow from year to year, and that will be a plus for us. But the way we are doing it right now, and the uncertainty of when bills go out and when revenue comes in, is very difficult to do. I meet with the heads of the financial departments quite often, and they're all in favor of this new system. And we sat down to try to pinpoint when revenues are going to come in. And it's very difficult because, especially the state has not kept to a specific date on when money will come in yet. So to give you a figure, I think I would be misleading you, but we know from the facts we have in front of us, we will see a savings.
Is there any further? Back here, please.
My name is Phyllis Bedford. Henry Street. I also work for you as the town treasurer. In answer to the last question, of the communities that did go to quarterly billing, their borrowing has decreased anywhere from a low of 42.9% to as high as 90%. So that's a very broad area. But the fact is, yes, there are times of the year when we do have to borrow because there is no money coming in, the receipts are low, and if our tax bills do not go out, then there is no money to meet the payrolls or to meet the warrants. Generally, as Mr. Montori said, it's between July and August, and hopefully, if our tax bills go on time, we won't have to borrow again for another 6 months. But the fact that we have not been able to set a budget and not be able to get a tax rate means that there's a possibility and we may have to borrow again before the tax bills go out. Thank you.
Still under discussion under Article 2. Sir.
Mr. Moderator, to answer the previous question, if I understood it correctly, according to my figures, because I have kept up to date on this cost-benefit analysis of quarterly tax bills, I can tell you that on August 1st, $1,629,325 will come into the town on August 1st, and the same amount will come into the town on November 1st. On February 1st, $1,793,627, and on May 1st, that will come in also, for a total of $6,845,904. Now, these are the figures that you have to break down in order to find out what the benefits are of a quarterly tax payment. And I have done that, and I have the figures. And on the other side of it is the expenses that you have to figure out. And when you get done with the benefits and you subtract the expenses, if you figure 5% return, the total benefit for the town is $56. I took the liberty of figuring it at 4.5%. You'd lose $3,407, and at 4%, you'd lose $7,375. And I have these figures. Anybody who wants to look at them can look at them. This is what we were told to do by the Department of Revenue. I have done it. Nobody else has done it. One other point of order, the previous question. I want to correct what I think is a misunderstanding. You do have the right to pay 6 months at a time, but if you don't pay your first quarterly payment on August 1st, it kicks in the 14% penalty charge.
Mr. Montori, just a couple more things to address some statements by Mr. Durkin this past time around and previously. First of all, there's penalties right now if you don't pay your taxes, and I think they're a little more severe than what the quarterly system will implement. Mr. Durkin made a statement earlier that the money is budgeted for the interest, and I think he said something to the effect that deficits are okay by him and they should be okay by you. Well, we can't run deficits, and even though the money's in the budget, we usually spend or are forced to spend over what is appropriated and make that money up in the next fiscal year. So deficits aren't okay. They're not okay to the auditors. They're not okay to the Department of Revenue, and they will surely reflect on the town's bond rating if we run deficits from year to year. The cost-benefit analysis and the cash flow that we have looked at, the treasurer and myself, that we have to do for the bank in order to borrow money, when we break down the actual expenses, the actual revenue coming in based on what we've had from year to year, And I'm not sure what figures Mr. Durkin is using. I don't know if he got them from the treasurer, I'm not sure, but we used actual figures. We showed deficits in certain months of the year, and that's why we borrowed. We do not borrow because the treasurer just feels like borrowing at any time. We run cash flow analysis, we talk to the bank, and the bank tells us what they think we should be borrowing to make it through the fiscal year. So yes, we do look at the expenses, and we look at the revenue and project what we need for borrowing for the year. And I still maintain that our figures, although we're not specific, we are accurate in saying that we will save money, and Mr. Durkin's figures seem to be wrong. And I haven't seen them, and I would like to look at them, but from what we've seen in cash flow, we are running major deficits in certain months.
Is there any further discussion on Article 2? This article requires a majority vote for passage. If you choose to accept it, this would remain in force for a 3-year minimum period, and then it could be looked at again. With that, we will take a vote on this article. All those in favor of Article 2 for quarterly tax payments, please indicate by raising your hand now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. I just want to, just before we go on, okay, I'll take that. Move to reconsider Article 2. Is there a second on that? There is. Motion has been made and seconded to reconsider Article 2. If you vote yes, you will be reconsidering the article. If you vote no, we will have no further discussion on that article this evening. Is that anyone not clear on how they want to vote? All those in favor of reconsideration, please indicate by raising your hand now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. Reconsideration is defeated. I do want to, just at one point, in my apologies to Mr. Bates over here. When I gave the introductions of who was here and who was not from the stage, Mr. Bates chose to sit down below, and as they went down, I forgot that he had told me that beforehand, due to hearing difficulties, that the acoustics are not that good on the stage, and he has chosen to sit down below, and I just want to acknowledge it. Please accept my apologies for not recognizing you earlier. If we could move on to Article 3 now.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to raise and appropriate or take from available funds the sum of $8,000 for the purpose of opening the Nashua River Beach for Clinton residents only. Funds will be used for equipment, personnel, liability insurance, and ID cards. A fee will be charged so that the money will be returned to the town.
Mr. Moderator, I second the motion.
Article number 3 has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion at this point on Article 3? It is my understanding, just going over a couple of points on this, the $8,000 is for the fiscal year we are now in, which would end June 30th. It would be like from Memorial Day to June 30th would be the $8,000 to open the river. And then if any further funds were needed, it's my understanding that money would have to be funded at the annual town meeting coming up in the spring for the next fiscal year, which would begin July 1st. Okay. Is there any discussion? Mr. Conley.
I'm not here to take a position either for or against the article. In reading the article, it occurred to me that there may be the potential for creating more problems than this approach to providing a beach solves. What I mean by that is we're taking a publicly owned
facility, which is actually owned by the Metropolitan District Commission or the MWRA. I understand it's leased somehow to the town of Clinton. My point, one serious concern I have is to restrict the beach to Clinton people only, Clinton residents only, a beach that we do not own, that we're there at the, with the permission of a state agency. I think the trend now is rather than prohibiting the public from using public facilities, the trend is toward opening them. So that is one concern I have, that there would be people, and today is a litigious society, that anyone who is not a Clinton resident that appears at the beach and wants to go in and is turned away, you have a potential for litigation. I can't say with certainty that this would happen, but I do think that there is a problem with it, a potential problem. I think my own personal feeling is that if the town of Clinton cannot afford to support, through its tax base, a simple municipal service that they've had for probably 100 years, one place or another, a town beach, so-called. I don't know if the way to go is to start charging people to go in. But I don't have, I'm not speaking against the merits of the article. I just want to point out, I would feel remiss in the position of town solicitor if I didn't at least raise the questions that are going to be raised possibly down the road. If the will of this meeting is that this is the way the town wants to approach their swimming facility, that's fine with me. I don't have any argument with the merits of it. I only have a concern about the potential for problems being created by the restriction. Thank you.
Still under discussion, sir.
Again, my name is Rod Cashes, 159 Grove Street. I've been working on getting the beach open since April with the Parks and Recreation Committee. We have done a lot of work. We have gotten our state representative involved. There are many towns that have a town beach. There are many that limit it to town personnel or town citizens. By being proprietary in supplying the lifeguards, the services, and the insurance, then the town should enjoy the benefits. The town will not exclude completely residents, non-residents, providing they are sponsored by a resident and the necessary fees are paid for their entrance. The idea of returning the beach to the town of Clinton is obvious. The water is clean and pure. You don't have to worry about chlorine infections. And it's natural. This town has swam in that beach. My children learned to swim in that beach. I think it's needed. I think it's wanted. I have stood in front of the post office getting 90% agreement by this town. I think it's needed, and I ask you to vote for it. Thank you.
Still under discussion on the article? Sir.
My name is Philip Bailey on the Finance Committee. The reason, if you read your warrant, that the Finance Committee did not approve or disapprove was exactly, we did not have any information on this article when it came to the selectmen, other than the previous speaker explaining it. He did a fine job. We are not, the Finance Committee is not against having the beach down there. We are concerned with what Mr. Connolly has said. If you make it exclusively for town people, if the state is going to come down and make promises of fencing it in. If the town is going to police it and the state is going to help police it, the Metropolitan Police Department, I understand is going to chip in and keep the... but none of these things are chiseled in granite, you know? And as I said to the previous speaker before, I really have a tough time believing what I hear from the state these days. You know, they've made us so many promises on our schools and money that we were going to get, and now we're up here on a $359,000 deferral. Okay? We're up here trying to get tax bills out 4 times, trying to get more money in, trying to pay our taxes. If the town wants to give these people an opportunity, the recreation is behind it, an opportunity to have a town beach, we are all in favor of it. It's your money. We have to sponsor their first year to get it, and then when they come and they have their people pay, I don't know what they're going to charge to get in the beach. I'm sure they're going to have to spend money down there for facilities because the bathhouse is destroyed. The beach has always been a good beach for the town of Clinton. I think probably everybody in this room that has a little age has been down there swimming in our lifetime. It's always been a good spot for the kids. But policing it, having lifeguards down there, and having an organization behind it, the Recreation Committee, it's your money. They're going to repay it to you by charging to go into this beach. Now, if this is all legal and we don't get in any problems, we'd like to give it a try too. Thank you.
Stephen Kroll, Henry Street. I'm not sure who to address this question to, whether it's the board or to the... Okay. Do we know how much this fee is supposed to be? Fee for using the beach?
Has it been a determination how much it would be per person or family?
Right now, we're looking at maybe per family something like $25 per year.
And how about...
How many families would you have to get involved to get, if you figure that? Okay. Further questions? Or?
Why restricting it to Clinton residents if we're going to charge a fee? Why not take everybody's money?
Go ahead.
As stated, sir, we will take, everybody's money, providing they are sponsored by somebody in the town of Clinton. What we do not want to happen is an overrunning of the beach by non-Clinton residents, as has happened before, and that has chased the residents of Clinton out.
I'm just curious if we weren't charging money before it was just wide open. Since we're charging money,
wide open with no lifeguards and a big liability, because if somebody drowned over there, we would be responsible.
Okay.
So this is our concern, is to raise the money necessary to protect our people so they can swim in comfort. Now, if I may, Mr. Moderator, I would like to address the MDC issue. Bill Constantino, our esteemed representative, has met with the MDC regarding the beach. He has made, I say, initial meetings. They are very favorable toward supporting us in the beach, ensuring that it is for Clinton residents, helping us to collect the fee as long as we pay lifeguard services. But we planned the budget originally not on this issue, but on doing it ourselves. So we are approaching you on doing it ourselves. Without that agreement, we cannot approach the MDC to finalize anything. Thank you very much.
Still in discussion under the article, Mr. Ward.
Mr. Moderator, just to make a few comments myself, it was my understanding with this article to raise some startup money, as Chairman of the Finance Committee mentioned, that intention to be repaid. This is just a startup money. But it was my understanding with the agreement with the MDC, who we have I think, very credible people working from DC in this area who are supportive of this project, that the MDC was going to be in control of the maintenance and fixing up the bathhouse and patrol and putting up fences and whatnot. They wanted a commitment from the town to pay for the lifeguards and that they would take care of the rest. This restriction of Clinton residents was acceptable to the state, and it will be the state that will be in control of the facility. So I would assume any restrictions would then be their liability. Right, as long as the lifeguards are paid for by the town, that it would be done. But I think it's worth a shot to at least to try and go ahead with. Everyone agrees that it's a wonderful place to swim and to be down there and to bring your family. I think it's at least a move in the right direction to give it a shot, and if the state doesn't come through with the funds, or there's a problem with the town, can't afford it, or the appropriate money isn't raised, then we'll have to discard the proposal, but at least to try and give it a shot.
John Dromgoole, South Meadow Road. A couple of questions. Number one, you said that you thought the fee would be about... Okay. Dromgoole, D-R-O-M-G-O-L-E. Okay. It was brought up that they expected to charge about $25 and they expected about 300 families to participate. You multiply that out, how are we going to support? They're asking for $8,000 now just to get this thing started. How do they expect to pay lifeguards on roughly somewhere about $7,500?
Okay, as I said, the $8,000 that they're asking for is money, as I understand it, to get this program going through June 30th, from like Memorial Day through June 30th. If more money is needed for this project, it would be for the new fiscal year beginning July 1st, and it would be on your annual town meeting warrant in April.
Self-supporting.
It is, sir. Actually, we're expecting 400 to 500 people. I kept it lowball, okay? Which is what we would expect. Now, in order to get the money to open the beach before June 30th, we have to approach the special town meeting. Right. Any more money that would be needed would be applied for at the regular town meeting with the explanations necessary. But this is also the money needed to go to the MDC and say, we have town approval to go ahead and talk to you.
I understand the $8,000. What I don't understand is how you expect to pay lifeguards on $8,000 to $10,000.
Lifeguards at $15 an hour, that's two. You're required to have two. For 6 hours a day, for 72 days, comes up to $6,000, sir.
6 hours a day, so you expect to operate some between like 9 and 4?
Right, you're not going to operate much after the sun starts setting. Not in that river.
Well, in July, the sun doesn't set until 8 o'clock.
Understand, but that is average.
I just have a problem with the amount that you're going to charge. I just anticipate that you're going to be back before the town meeting looking for more money to support this.
We may or may not, depending on what we do at the MDC.
Is there any further discussion on this article? There being none, majority vote for passage. All those in favor of Article 3 signify by raising your hand now, please. Thank you. Opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 4.
Article 4, Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to require a townwide ballot for the purpose of final approval of the operation of a municipal solid waste landfill to be owned and operated by RCI Incorporated. within the town limits. This article is a result of a petition signed by unregistered voters submitted to the Board of Selectmen for insertion on the special town meeting warrant.
Mr. Moderator, I second that motion.
Dealing with the town being made to require a townwide ballot for the purposes of final approval of the operation of a municipal solid waste landfill to be owned and operated by RCI Inc. within the town limits. Should be mentioned that this article is the result of a petition signed by 100 registered voters submitted to the Board of Selectmen for insertion on the special town meeting warrant. Is there any questions, comments, or discussion on this at this time? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Deborah Grant, and I live at 17 Clamshell Road. We'd like to change Article 4 to read as follows. To see if the town will vote to require a non-binding town-wide ballot for the purpose of approval of the proposed operation of a municipal solid waste landfill to be owned and operated by RCI Incorporated within the town's limits.
Okay, a motion has been made to amend Article 4 to now read, to see if the town will vote to require a non-binding town-wide ballot for the purpose of approval of the proposed operation of a municipal solid waste landfill to be owned and operated by RCI Inc. within the town's limits. Is there a second to that motion? Second made. Okay. Questions, comments, or discussion on the proposed amendment to Article 4? The difference being that the amendment would make it a non-binding town-wide ballot as opposed to the binding that was written in Article 4 on your warrant. It is my understanding that there really is no legal way to make this binding, and that's why this motion is being made. Any questions, comments, or discussion on the amendment to the article? Sir.
Henry Connery, 374 Main Street. I'd like to understand how Lancaster was making a binding vote. How did they go about it?
How Lancaster what?
Had a binding vote on their dump down there.
Lancaster, as far as, I'm not up to it completely, as far as I know, they had a town meeting on it. I don't know that they had a, okay, it was a zoning question, and that's why the town meeting had a vote to change the zoning bylaw, which was separate from what we're doing here.
Isn't this a democracy? Can't you vote? Can't you vote on an issue that's so important to the town?
I understand what you're saying, sir, but it's my understanding that the state government has given every Board of Health in the Commonwealth the power to grant licenses for such.
Well, let's make an article on zoning tonight.
Any further questions on the amendment to the article? Mr. McNamara.
Yeah, Mr. Moderator, kind of disappointed that we only started out here with 212 people. The number of phone calls I had received and the word I had heard on the street and stuff, it seemed like there was a great interest out there. I'm kind of surprised there isn't more people here to discuss it. The article as submitted and even amended still has the word municipal solid waste landfill. A municipal solid waste landfill, I think, is in a lot of people's mind that it's the old way we had a dump in this town, that the town of Clinton residents would be able to drive up there and deposit their rubbish. Where I don't see that happening, I just want to remind the people that it is going to be a regional landfill located in a municipality called Clinton. That's the only thing municipal about it. It's going to be a regional landfill. It'll take in trash from a 25 to 35 mile radius. And regardless of how you feel on it, I just think it's a big issue that should be talked about and explored in people's minds. Do you want to subject yourself to this for the next 25 years or 20 years, whatever the life of the landfill will be? I think we need some public discussion on it. I realize that the Board of Health will be having public hearings, and I welcome them. and I'm kind of disappointed we don't have more people here to discuss it. Thank you.
Ma'am.
Mary Chaffee, 83 Franklin Street, Clinton. I think the article, the way it's written, is just confusing to a lot of people. I think we thought we were coming down here to actually discuss the landfill, but it sounds like we're talking more of a ballot effect, which I think is really throwing off people that did want to talk against the landfill. So I'll talk against the landfill how I feel about it.
Wait a minute.
See, now
Before
that's
get
it,
too
so we
far
can't
into this,
discuss
okay?
it.
I understand where you're coming
Yeah.
from, okay? The place to discuss your pros and cons on the landfill itself, as I understand it, would be a Board of Health meeting. This is a town meeting with a warrant, and the warrant is whether or not we would have at this point, either a binding or a non-binding, I guess legally it won't be a binding referendum by ballot on the issue. I know where you're coming from, and I understand your concern, but the article really doesn't open it up that wide to get into a whole pros and cons of the dump. It's are we going to have a referendum by ballot on this issue? And if a large discussion is going to get into this, it really should be done at a Board of Health meeting. They have the granting authority to grant this license.
Well, we've done this, though. We've been to the selectmen meeting to the point that I was at one time probably not even known in the town, and now everybody knows me as being there every week. They thought I was taking Mary O'Brien's place. So this is what the idea was. I thought that we could come down in some way talk it, because the Board of Health is telling us, Mr. Carboni speaks and says, that they have made, not the decision, but this has met all the criteria that's required in order for a landfill to go in. Well, that didn't give us as individuals any chance to answer it. I like to think that we elected them to represent us, but not to override us, is what they are doing at this point. So when will we get a chance?
Well, it won't be tonight, I can tell you
All right,
that.
if we vote yes, if we vote yes on this ballot right now to have it, the next time it would come up, is that be the time when we can?
If you vote yes on the amendment change and the article, okay, what will happen is that a town-wide referendum will be held to where you could vote yes, you were in favor of the dump or landfill, excuse me, I don't want to offend anybody. You are in favor of it or you are against it, okay? This town meeting does not have the authority to do anything, pro or con, on the issue of whether or not we are going to have this establishment or whatever. Okay? So what I'm saying is that the only thing this town meeting is authorized to do is to vote under the article some sort of a referendum question where the townspeople could have their say there as to whether or not they are in favor of the issue or against the issue. But keep in mind, it's non-binding on the granting authority, and the granting authority by state law is the Board of Health. So that's where we're at with this. And and I understand, I know what you're going to get in. I understand where you're coming from. But the place to get into that is really not here tonight, because we have no authority or ability to do anything one way or the other.
Well, they
It's
keep
at a
telling
Board
us
of Health
that no
meeting.
matter where we are, that we don't have any rights. So, all right, then if I ask the people here tonight to please vote yes to at least get it to the next step.
If you so like, yes.
All right, I'd like to please vote yes tonight. Put this on a ballot and let the people of Clinton decide, not let 3 individuals or 4 individuals. There's a bunch of you. Get together, because it's going to affect the whole town. It isn't going to affect just a few.
Is there any further discussion on the proposed article change, the amendment to Article 4? There being none, we will vote on the amendment right now. I will read it to you once again. To see if the town will vote to require a non-binding town-wide ballot for the purpose of approval of the proposed operation of a municipal solid waste landfill to be owned and operated by RCI, Inc. within the town's limits. Okay. All those in favor of the amendment to Article 4 as I have just read it, please indicate by raising your hand now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The amendment is passed. Now we must vote also on the article itself which is in effect the amendment. I will read it once again and we will vote on it again. To see if the town will vote to require a non-binding town-wide ballot for the purpose of approval of the proposed operation of a municipal solid waste landfill to be owned and operated by RCI Inc. within the town's limits. That is now the article on number 4. All those in favor of Article 4 indicate by raising your hand now, please. What? Well, I didn't know we had a big difference. You want to change? All right. I will hold and let Mr. Ward speak briefly on this. We are now on the article, which is the amendment taken over.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I was just waiting for it to get the procedural vote to get to the article which we're going to be voting on. I just want to make one point clear. I'm in support of this article. I think it would give all the people a sense to the officials of how they feel, instead of just the people that will say show up to a public hearing. It'll give people the opportunity to have a voice. But there is one important point, that it's a non-binding referendum, and that the approval or disapproval still rests with the Board of Health, and that will just only be information and a feeling of the whole town that they can use in their decision, or as to know how I know they have a criteria to go through, but at least it'll give them a sense of the town. But it is not going to be yes or no on whether it's going to be here or not. But it's non-binding, so I just wanted to make that point clear, so people won't go away thinking they'll be voting up or down the project. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 4? Sir.
Joe Gibbons, we're from the Board of Health. The only question I have, is this going to be a special election for this? Or do we have to wait until the annual election in May?
That'll be up to the Board of Selectmen to make a decision on that. I don't know if they're prepared now to get into that or not. No. I guess I don't think they've made up their minds yet, really. It'll be one or the other, obviously.
Well, yeah, because the thing is, we're going on the hearings and everything. We'd like to have that input. And we'd like to know when, they plan on doing it.
Okay, I don't... your point, I understand. I think your point is taken by them. I don't think they're prepared to, really set a date this evening.
This is just my personal view, Mr. Moderator. I think until we see if the article passed, and then we can go to our meeting to debate it and discuss, when would be the appropriate time to have it. So I think we would need probably a little time to discuss it.
Exactly. Okay. Any further discussion?
Carol Dickow, 215 Woodlawn Street. Now, you've just led me to believe that this whole thing rests in the hands of the Board of Health, and that is a statewide... okay. All right. Then I'm holding in my hand an article just recently cut out of one of the local newspapers that says Hubbardston. Now, they have 1,000 acres. 1,000 acres for a dump. We have 67. They have wide open spaces. And it says, Selectmen last night decided the landfill portion of a proposed resource recovery and recycling center is not wanted in town. So why in there the selectmen decide it's not wanted? In Clinton, we know we're getting it. Let's face it, we're getting it. Why do the selectmen have the opportunity to vote on it there? And my other question is there any way we can take it out of the hands of the Board of Health?
Mr. Coyne.
I'll try to answer one question. In some of these smaller towns, the Board of Selectmen act as the Board of Health. I don't know what the setup is in Hubbardston or how it is. I did see that piece in the paper that lady was referring to, but I couldn't answer a question because I don't know whether how the town is set up with the laws, who is the authority on certain things. In the town of Clinton, selectmen have certain things. Other towns, they have lesser things or more things to do as the town gets smaller. I really couldn't answer that one unless some other members of the board here could explain it. I couldn't.
Mr. Moderator, I don't know if there's an answer to Mr. Dicko's question, but the reason why I said that it's important that we get a feeling for the townspeople is, even though it is the Board of Health's responsibility to determine suitability or give them site assignment, I believe it's the Board of Health, as well as in the final, really, the Board of Selectmen will be negotiating a contract with anybody that was given site assignment for a municipal or a regional landfill, whatever. And I think that if we had a referendum and you've seen where a majority of the townspeople were against it, then we would try to deal with that in our negotiations with the proponent, that he restrict his operations to X amount of hours, that he restrict his trucks coming into X amount of routes, and so on and so forth, and it'd give us a heck of a lot more bargaining power if, in fact, the people were against it. Maybe they're not against it, you know, and if they vote in favor of it, then you certainly will sit down and we're going to negotiate. Whatever way we go, we're going to have to negotiate what's best for the town. I think it's just good to have the people involved. It's something this big. You know, they claim it's not a big issue. I think it is. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator. Just one clarifying point on that question. The way that the article was read, my sense was that the selectmen held a meeting and they determined that the town doesn't want it. Not to say that the town denied the application, that the selectmen denied the application, but that the town doesn't want the project. It's still, in every town, the decision still rests with the Board of Health, which is state law, and to change that, that point would be a change in the state law, and that would be the only way to change it. But just my sense of how the article was just read here, I think the selectmen may have determined that they don't want it in town, but that's not to say they're not going to get it. So I don't know if that helps answer the question also.
Any further discussion on Article 4 as amended? There being none, we will now vote on the article. All those in favor of Article 4 as amended, please indicate by raising your hand now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed.
Moderator. Article 6. Article 5. 6. I move the town vote to transfer from line item fiscal year
1992 budget. Funds deemed necessary to implement the salary benefit provisions for the second year of a 3-year negotiated agreement beginning July 1, 1990, between the town of Clinton through the Board of Selectmen and Local 151 Massachusetts Coalition of Police, AFL-CIO, and having been negotiated in accordance with Chapter 150E of the General Laws as amended and recommended through the mediation process of the Massachusetts Joint Labor Management Committee. And this will be done as follows. $1,378 from total blanket insurance to police holiday pay. $6,633 from town blanket insurance to sergeant salary. $22,347 from workman's compensation to patrolman's salary. $800 from blanket insurance to police longevity. $550 from blanket insurance to police clothing, and $2,791 from blanket insurance to police Quinn bill, for a grand total of $34,499.
Mr. Moderator, I second that motion.
Article number 5 having been made and seconded, I will spare you from reading the whole article over again. It's long. This article does deal with the transfer. Please keep in mind that word because it's going to come into play at the next article much more deeply. This is a transfer of money that was appropriated at the annual meeting this past year. This article has been disapproved by your Finance Committee inasmuch as this requires a transfer of money and not an appropriation. This article will be a hand majority vote for passage. Questions, comments, or discussion under Article 5? Sir.
Mr. Moderator, Robert D. Winship, 58 Highland Street. Mr. Moderator, I rise for the purpose of offering an amendment to this article. The amendment would read as follows. Motion amending Article 5 by inserting the following words at the end of the first paragraph. Quote, "And to require the Board of Selectmen to make available at least one copy of the current contract in force between the town and Local 151, Mass Coalition of Police, AFL-CIO, at the office of the town clerk for review by the public during normal business hours."
To Article 5, that would insert the following words at the end of the first paragraph, which is the end. And to require the Board of Selectmen to make available at least one copy of the contract currently in force between the town and Local 151 MCOP AFL-CIO at the office of the town clerk for review by the public during normal business hours. That amendment has been made. Is there a second to the amendment? Amendment has been made and seconded to that effect. Discussion on the amendment at this time. Sir.
Mr. Moderator, I believe that with the exception of the 5-member Board of Selectmen, the town administrator, a few other town officials, and the members of the local local union, I doubt if there are 10% of the people remaining in this hall right now who have ever seen a copy of the existing contract between the town and the police union. If anyone looks in their annual town report, at the end of the town report, there are several pages including every article existing in the contract between the school committee and the town of Clinton and its bargaining units. But nowhere is there any mention of the contract, what is involved, what are the benefits that they receive, how much they got for clothing allowance last year, how much they are getting totally in Quinn bill benefits this year, next year, 2 years ago, and you cannot get a copy of that contract unless you go traipsing around looking for someone who has the authority to hand it out. It is a public record, and therefore I require that it be included in the records of the town clerk, the existing contract, during normal business hours.
Thank you. Further discussion on the proposed amendment to Article 5? There being none, we will vote on the amendment to the article at this time, and the amendment only. All those who would like those words, "and to require the Board of Selectmen to make available at least one copy of the contract currently in force between the town and Local 151 MCOP AFL-CIO at the office of the town clerk for review by the public during normal business hours." All those in favor of that motion indicate by raising your hand now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. That has passed. We are now under discussion under Article 5 as amended. Questions, comments, or discussion? Mr. Montori.
This article seeks funding in the police department's budget for salary and benefit provisions of an agreement that was reached between the police union and the Board of Selectmen. Provisions of this contract the first year were implemented January 1, 1991, or implemented retroactive to January 1, 1991. They were implemented after the Board of Selectmen and the union went through the mediation process with the Mass Joint Labor Management Committee, and the contract was settled on the recommendation of the mediator. The reason why the contract provisions were implemented without a town meeting approval was based on a court ruling that stated that if town meeting rejects or disapproves funding for a contract, as in this case, the police contract was disapproved at a prior town meeting, the selectmen are obligated to seek other sources of funding, and they are obligated to use unexpended and previously appropriated money. In this case, the police department after the mediation process and negotiations were taking place, had unexpended and previously appropriated money in their budget due to the resignation of one police officer. At that time, and on the recommendation of through mediation, the selectmen were obligated to fund the contract without going to town meeting. The selectmen, based on the court case, were obligated to, and town council just added that the ruling is a mass labor relations case and mass labor relations committee. The selectmen were obligated to bargain in good faith and to fund the contract provisions based on the court ruling that was presented to them. At the time that the decision was made, what was facing the selectmen were to settle the contract at the provisions that were proposed to them, or to go through a lengthy process and possibly court and not only jeopardize the first year funding, but possibly subsequent years that were agreed to back in the fall. The provisions of the contract that were settled are as follows. There was a 5% salary increase that was retroactive to January 1, 1991. There was a $25 increase in clothing, and that $25 increase will be in each of the 3 years of the contract. That's fiscal 91, fiscal 92, and fiscal 93. There will be $25 increases in clothing. Longevity was increased $50 for the first 5-year interval, and was increased $25 for all other 5-year intervals of longevity. Those are the only costs involved in the contract. Now, to fund the contract for all 3 years would be approximately $55,500. Of that amount, $18,000 has already been spent for the first year, which took place in fiscal 1991. The agreement that was reached was a fair agreement, and it was an equitable agreement. In contrast to what was proposed at town meeting last fall, last town meeting there was approximately a 20% increase proposed over 3 years. This contract is proposing a 5% increase, once again retroactive to January 1, 1991. There is no increase for the second and third year of this contract. There is an option for wage reopeners between the union and the town if, for some reason, the town comes across a substantial amount of money or if circumstances change. But as we've been told right now by the union, there is no intentions to reopen the contract. So in effect, we have a 5% increase for 3 years. The money that we are asking for tonight basically maintains the 5% that was given to the police bargaining unit last fiscal year. And if the funding is not approved tonight, the amount of money that we are requesting will have to be absorbed within the police budget somehow, because the selectmen are obligated to pay the 5% pay increase and to fund the provisions of the salary and benefit provisions of the contract. Once again, the selectmen feel that based on what was facing them and based on the proposal of the union, it was a fair contract. And also one factor to take into consideration, the police department is working with less staff than they have been in the past, but they are asked to do the same, if not more work. And a 5% salary increase seemed very fair for the work they are doing with the number of people staffed. Thank you.
Still under discussion on Article 5. There being none, I just want to, sir.
Has disapproved this article. I want to give you a little background. Last year, the Board of Selectmen met with the Town Hall employees here in the Town Hall and asked our employees to hold the line. There'd be no raises. Money is tight. We sat a month ago with the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee on this deferral. We asked the school department to agree to support the deferral. The state then took it on its own to ask the boards of selectmen in the different towns to either approve or disapprove the deferral. The deferral is $359,000, which has to be carried on to next year. Right now, at that meeting a month ago, we sat with the Board of Selectmen, our Finance Committee, your Finance Committee, Richard Montori, and as close a figure we have for you this evening, we're going to go into the budget year a little less than $1 million short. $1 million short. Okay? Now, one answer was given to me and to the Board of Selectmen who was there and to the Finance Committee. These town hall employees, why don't they join a union? You know? They haven't got the support of the Board of Selectmen. They can't band together and come up here and say, hey, look, I'm going to get 5% the Quinn bill and this and that whole ball of wax. We have a good police department. We ask them to hold the line. We ask the fire department to hold the line. We ask everybody. We've got to hold the line. You see people coming into this town hall on their last check for unemployment. Their checks have run out. What are we going to do? We've got to help these people. These people can't afford to pay these wages. This is why we disapprove this article. The Board of Selectmen knows exactly why we disapprove. We've had many a discussion on this. We've asked some to do, some not to do. Why? Thank you.
Is there any further discussion, sir?
Pat Parker, 18 Sprague Road. I'm looking at this and I have a question. I see town blanket insurance, workman's comp, blanket insurance, blanket insurance, blanket insurance. Is this money that's already been put into the budget for fiscal 90, or the year it states? The year that we're in now. And this is applying to the year we're in now.
This is the transfer of money.
It's already budgeted. We've already got the money. It's there.
Mr. Montori.
Just to follow up on the last person that spoke, the accounts that we're taking the money out of, there are surpluses in those accounts because the town, after going out to bid for their insurance town-wide, which is workers' compensation, blanket insurance, which covers all of the property and auto, as well as liability insurance, we received such good bids based on what was, compared to what was appropriated, there was excess money in the account. And what was appropriated only reflected what the costs for the previous year were. We've changed insurance companies and we've received excellent bids, and that is why there are surpluses in that account. But just to follow up on a couple of things, the selectmen and anybody that is negotiating is obligated to negotiate in good faith. We cannot go into negotiations and make it as simple and as cut and dry as asking a union to hold the line, and we can't compare them to other unions. We can't negotiate like that. We've gone through a very lengthy negotiation process and a lengthy mediation process. This agreement that we have come to, we feel, is a very good agreement and is a fair agreement to all sides. We do have an excellent police department. We are working with the police department that is less staffed than it has been in previous years. Each year we have cut a man through attrition. So we're asking these men to, again, take on the same responsibilities, if not more, and all we're saying is we'd like to give them a 5% raise with the second 2 years of the contract not calling for a raise, and securing language and securing a contract for 3 years. Once again, the total cost of the contract, approximately $55,000 over 3 years. Thank you.
The previous speaker, Mr. Montori. If you can't arbitrate in good faith, and you can't ask a group of men or women to hold the line when everyone else is doing it, we have a moratorium on hiring in the town of Clinton. We have restrictions on one but none on the other. We try to sit with the firemen, the policemen, and the like. Yes, we have a good fire department. We have an excellent police department. No one's questioning that. We're asking them to hold the line. I was on an arbitration in the building trades before Montour was born, and we were held the line for 5 cents 25, 30 years ago. We've asked you people to decide how to spend your money. We have for the last 2 years, your finance committee, not mine, not the Board of Selectmen, but the town of Clinton. That's who we work for, the finance committee. And we have suggested to you people for the last 2-3 years, the day has come. Last year we said we had to hold the line. Things are tough. Look at what we've done on this deferral. Do you realize what we're doing on this deferral? There's men up here that know exactly that $1 million has to be raised next year, and we're going to have to sit down when budget time comes and say, well, there's no union in the town hall. Who can we cut? How can we get rid of the building inspector? Or how can we get rid of a couple of secretaries or the janitor? Or let's turn off some more lights, or let's do this. Let's pull down, let's save the money. I had a very close friend of mine. I've got some ideas how to save money. Well, my God, we're open for that. But one thing we're asking you to do, and it's your money, is to hold the line. It's your money. You had better look till next year and say, hey, look, the tax bill, we're going out quarterly now. We've got to save the money. And this, we're forewarning you again. It's your money. It's up to you to say yes or no.
Still on discussion under Article 5. As a Board of Selectmen, we know how tough the times are. My year and a half I've been on the board, we've been dealing with budget problems and budget cuts every month. But we still have to operate the town. This is a union that we're required by law to negotiate. I was on the subcommittee on this negotiating team that went to mediation. We've spent many hours on this contract. It's substantially lower than the one that was brought here at the previous town meeting. And we felt it's a fair contract that we support. And we still have to operate fairly to our people that are employed in the town. And we thought this was a decent contract, and I hope that the town supports it and that we can look at other areas and try to address them at their time, and not to compare departments or compare cuts or compare people when we have to look at each individual issue separately and address it and do what we feel is best at that time. So I hope the town will support funding this contract. Is there any further discussion, sir?
Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, Edward Arcane, 15 Clanfield Road on the voting list. I have since changed my address. Well, what I would like to say, these men deserve this pay raise. I honestly believe they didn't receive one a year ago. Now they're asking for something for this year and the future years. Take a look at your television, your newspapers, and what's moving this way. And you ask these men to go out and carry a gun and meet these people in the night hours and everything else. Things are tough. I worked for your town until last Monday. Things are tough in the DPW too, and they've cut all kinds of budgets. But these men still have to live, and they themselves are taxpayers. They pay taxes. They pay the water bill, the storage bill, and the insurance that goes up and everything. I think it's unfair to ask them not to take a pay raise. In all honesty, I think you people should support your Board of Selectmen. In all due respect to the Finance Committee, they do a good job. but there's somewhere they've got to draw the line. And I think this is one of the places they should draw the line. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on Article 5 as amended? There being none, please keep in mind, sir.
I have the utmost respect for our police department and great admiration for our chief. But I understand, as Mr. Bailey said, that we have a unionized police force, we have a unionized fire department. Did the non-union people get a raise last year? Did they get a raise the year before that? Are they planned on, you plan on giving them a raise in the near future? Then I think equity should prevail. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Sir.
Good evening. I'm Mark Lovenger. I'm the Chief of Police. Last spring, at annual town meeting, we were here and the Finance Committee approved an additional patrolman for the police department. By amendment, it was taken out of the police department budget. And the reason why the Finance Committee approved that additional man was to save money in overtime costs. This article here is not voting down a raise for the patrolman. There will be a raise regardless if you vote no on this article. This article is only going to vote to cut funding from the police department. And the members are still going to receive a raise, except there's going to be 2 less members of the police department receiving that raise. You're going to be laying off, what this article means is you're laying off 2 patrolmen on a department that's already understaffed. If you vote no on this article, you are voting to spend more money. You're going to spend more money in your overtime account. You're going to have additional overtime expenses to fill the vacancies in the shift that these 2 people are leaving when we lay them off. And you're also going to reduce the amount of money that you're going to be bringing in from fines from the courtroom from the lack of work, the lack of radar assignments, because of the lack of these 2 people not being on the police department. And you're going to seriously understaff the police department. When you vote no on this article, you'd be voting no to, you're not voting no to a raise, you're voting yes to lay off patrolmen.
Any further discussion on Article 5 as amended? There being none. Yes, there is, sir.
Good evening. Ed Brescia, Oak Street, President, Local 151, Massachusetts Coalition of Police. Look, I don't know if you people know this or not, but we have lost 4 positions since 1988 and have not gained a 1 back. We need the money to keep us level funded, to keep us at the same manpower that we are. If you vote down the money, we're going to lose 2, services are going to be cut, and it's going to be severe. We're barely keeping our heads above water now with everything that we have to do. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion under Article 5 as amended? There being none, please keep in mind on this now that this article, despite the fact that it has been disapproved by the Finance Committee, will be a hand majority vote due to the fact that this is a transfer of money and not an appropriation. Keep that in mind when we go into Article 6, because there is a difference, and I just want you to understand the differences between the 2 in terms of where the money is coming from. This is a transfer, so it is a hand vote. All those in favor of Article 5 as amended indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. The article is passed amended. Article 6. We're going to do the ballot on this.
Mr. Moderator, Article 6. I move that the town vote to transfer $13,000 from interest from the Cemetery Trust $25,326 from free cash, and $10,000 from liability insurance. The funds deemed necessary to implement the following salary benefit provisions for the first and second year of a 3-year negotiated agreement beginning July 1, 1990, between the Town of Clinton through the Board of Selectmen and the International Association of Firefighters, Local 3189, and having been negotiated in accordance with Chapter 150E of the General Laws as amended and as recommended through the mediation process of the Massachusetts Joint Labor Management Committee, as the provisions of the figures. $13,000 from interest to Cemetery Trust Fund to firefighter salaries. $19,560 from free cash to firefighter salaries. $2,206 from free cash to deputy chief salaries. $3,560 from free cash to captain's, acting captain's salary. $2,486 from liability insurance to captain, acting captain salaries. $2,563 from liability insurance to holiday pay. $374 from liability insurance to incentive pay. $625 from liability insurance to longevity. $1,875 from liability insurance to uniforms, and $2,077 from liability insurance to sick leave buyback, for a grand total of $48,326.
Mr. Moderator, I second that motion.
Seconded. I just want to go over procedure for this article so that you're all clear on it, because there is a difference from Article 5, even though we had two different things here. I'm going to read from you the Town Bylaws of 1914, Article 1, Section 10, last paragraph. And this will explain why we're going to vote by ballot on this article as opposed to voting by hand on the last one. All votes on the appropriation of money in excess of $10,000 shall be taken in the first instance by ballot as above provided, unless said appropriation shall be recommended or approved by the Finance Committee. The last article dealt with a transfer of money that was already approved by you in the spring meeting. This article deals with appropriating money, in this case $13,000 in interest from the Cemetery Trust and $25,000 plus from free cash that has not been appropriated at the annual town meeting. Therefore, because this article has been disapproved, that money is not in the budget somewhere, then this article will be voted on by means of a ballot. And I just want you to understand the differences between why we're doing it on one and not on the other. It's because of the bylaws of the town of Clinton and how they direct it. Is there any questions, comments, or discussion? Sir.
Robert Winship, 58 Highland Street. To be fair about it, I made a move to amend Article 5, dealing with the fire department contract, and I'm about to do the same thing to amend Article 6, by inserting the following words at the end of the first paragraph. Quote, and to require the Board of Selectmen to make available at least one copy of the contract currently in force between the town and Local 3189 International Association of Firefighters at the office of the town clerk for review by the public during normal business hours.
Article number 6, motion being made to amend by adding the words at the end of the first paragraph, and to require the Board of Selectmen to make available at least one copy of the contract currently in force between the town and the Local 3189 IAAF at the office of the town clerk for review by the public during normal business hours. Is there a second to that motion? That is seconded. Any questions, comments, or discussion on this proposed amendment? Sir.
Sitting on the stage, those members of the firefighters local, and perhaps a few members of their families, I doubt if less than 10%, any more than 10% of the total number of voters now in the hall have ever seen a copy of the current contract existing between the town and the firefighters union. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the change to Article 6? There being none, we will vote at this time. All those in favor of the proposed amendment indicate by raising your hand now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The amendment is passed unanimously. Is there any questions, comments, or discussion on Article 6 as amended? Sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, Philip Bailey, Finance Committee. Article 6 would have the same verbiage as Article 5 from the Finance Committee, other than just one comment. The monies that are listed here from the insurance, from workman's comp and the like, were from the efforts made by the Board of Selectmen and on a good contract with the insurance companies. That money would have been turned over to our free cash and possibly used to reduce your tax rate next year, or reduce the taxes, or reduce your bills. Just want to let you know it isn't just thrown out there for raises every year. We do try to use it wisely. Thank you.
Mr. Montour.
Once again, this contract negotiation process was a long process, and this also ended up in mediation with the Joint Labor Management Committee. Through a long mediation process, this agreement was recommended to the Board of Selectmen and to the union through the mediator. The costs of the first 2 years of the contract would be $48,326. The total cost of the contract over the life of the 3 years, which is fiscal year 91, fiscal year 92, and fiscal year 93, will be approximately $53,277. The provisions of the contract are as follows. There will be a 5% wage increase retroactive to March 1st, 1991. There will be a $25 increase in clothing allowance in each of the 3 years of the contract. There will be a $25 increase in the 5-year interval steps for longevity. And there will be, in the second year of the contract, there will be another $25 increase in the intervals for longevity. And there is a new provision for sick time buyback, which allows certain firefighters that meet the criteria to buy back a third of their sick time that is accumulated for 1 year back at the end of the year. And that provision hopes to and should give incentive to save sick time. Now, the agreement that's been reached, once again, is a fair and equitable agreement. Management feels that for the cost of the contract, we have received, through the negotiations, language in the contract, and we've secured the language in the contract that we feel is very important to the town. It is language that saves the town money. It will provide the fire department to operate more efficiently and more effectively, and it will eliminate any gray areas that have been in the fire department before that may have caused problems. The salary increase, like the police department, is for the first year. It is effective March 1st, back to March 1st of 91. The second and third year of the contract, there are no raises, but there are wage reopeners in case, for some reason, the town comes across some money that they feel they could give out raises, and they would renegotiate any other increases. But in effect, this is a 3-year contract for language with 1 year raise the first year.